Hello, welcome to Board with Paint. Today I'll be showing you how to paint Batman from Batman the Animated Series Adventures, Shadow of the Bat. I'll be trying to mimic the look of the character from the animated series cartoon. So instead of applying base coats and highlighting up as we typically would, I'm going to be going for a very flat look with solid colors and bold separation between portions of the miniature with some black lining. I've already primed the miniature completely in white, so let's get started. We'll begin by blocking in the eyes with some white. Even though we're already primed in white, I wanted to get some white paint on there because we'll inevitably need to touch this up later, and it'll be easier to match regular paint. Next, we'll paint the lower half of Batman's face by mixing Resurrection Flesh and Kislev Flesh about 50-50. Now we'll move on to the yellow, and the only yellow bits are the utility belt and the outer part of the bat symbol on its chest. We're going to start with an undercoat of Averland Sunset, and follow that up with several coats of Marduk Yellow. Yellow is the most annoying color to paint because it doesn't cover well, and it tends to clump up in the recesses where you don't want it to. Using a more highly pigmented yellow like the Averland Sunset as an undercoat will help the coverage of the lighter color that we're putting on top. You'll probably want to apply 3 to 5 coats of the Marduk Yellow. Now to paint the main area of Batman's suit. I originally painted this with Skavenblight Dinge, which is a very dark grayish color, but it turned out looking much darker than the cartoon when it was dry, so I decided to go in afterwards with this color mixed with some white to tone it down a bit. I did about a 50-50 mix of that. So if you happen to be following along, do that mix from the start, and don't go through the step of putting the darker gray down first. This will cover the entire chest, the legs, and the arms, with the exception of the boots, the gauntlets, and the underpants. As with most colors I'll be using here, I did apply multiple coats of the lighter gray later on. Continuing with the ill-conceived color choices, I went with Braineater Azure for the inside of the cape, but I wanted something that was a little more blue, so I mixed it with some Stegadon Scale Green from Citadel, which is actually more of a bluish color than a greenish color. Now I'm painting the rest of Batman's suit in pure black. This includes obviously the cowl, the backside of the cape, the gauntlets, the boots, and the underwear. The look of these parts of Batman's costume in the animated series have some interesting highlights going on. They're mainly done in black, but they have some darkish blue highlights, basically the same color as the underside of the cape. I was initially going to completely forego doing any highlighting on these miniatures, but I didn't feel like Batman looked quite right without the blue highlights, so I do go back and add those later. Because we're foregoing highlights for the most part, we need to make sure that the colors we are putting down are very solid and have good coverage. So everything you see me paint on camera, I go back and put at least one more coat on, depending on the color. Here I'm starting on those little underoos, being extremely careful not to get any black on the yellow, because that yellow does not cover well. Fixing that is going to take a lot of work, and we'll have to redo the base coat and the Marduk Yellow that went on top. Now we're moving up to the cowl. As we get around towards the eyes and the face, we want to take extra care that we don't go onto the skin or into the eyes. We want to use the black to cut in and really shape those parts of the miniature. Now, using an extra small brush, I'm using the black to paint the bat symbol on the chest emblem. The bat symbol is sculpted on. It's not 100% precise, but it's small enough that as long as you get the shape close enough, the brain will fill in what it's supposed to look like. I did end up getting a little overzealous on the black here, and I had to fix the yellow later on, which wasn't especially fun, so try to avoid doing that if you can. Now onto the blue highlights. We're going to mix up the color that we use for the inside of the cape, and I'm just creating some block highlights. You can use a reference photo of either the card art or something from the animated series for your placement, but I'm basically applying this pretty roughly in areas that are raised pieces of fabric on anything that's black. What makes this different from painting a realistic miniature, where you would want a smooth transition between the light and shadow, we're actually going for a harsh transition here, where we want to see the edge of the blue and have it be a sharp line. So we're using thicker paint than we would for a typical highlight, and we are being more conservative with the areas that we're highlighting. For highlighting the head with this, I am just following the card artwork and highlighting the left side of his head. You can see here the only place I wasn't really sparing with the highlight was the upper parts of the shoulders with the cape. Looking back at the card artwork, it seems this left side of his underpants area has some highlight to it as well, so we'll add some there. And now I'm just going through and picking out the fingers a little bit and giving a little bit of highlight on the upper portions of the gauntlets and the upper facing portions of the boots. Here he is fully painted. You could call it complete at this point, but we're going to take it a step further by adding some dark lining. So what we're doing here is mixing in some black with some flow enhancer, and then we're going to wick off any excess on a paper towel, and then draw an outline around all the different parts of the costume. This is what's going to give us our contrast that we're sort of missing from not doing highlighting like we would do in a realistic miniature. I'm going through and adding lines between all the different parts of the utility belt, around the chest symbol, around the different parts of the outfit like the gauntlets and the boots, and we'll even use this sparingly to emphasize some of the areas that are in the deepest shadow, like under the chest muscles and between the abs. Here I'm drawing a line in Batman's mouth so that you can see his facial expression. There are tons of different ways you could go with painting the base or decorating it in different ways. I'm just going to do something simple and paint it. I've decided to just use the color of the faction that the characters are a part of. In this case, Batman being part of the Bat family, which has a yellow color on their character cards. Here, I'm just cleaning up around the feet with some pure black. And to give the base a nice finished look, I'm going to paint the rim in pure black as well. And it was at this point I realized the gray for the suit was a little too dark. So here I am mixing the Skavenblight Dinge with some white and reapplying that all over the miniature. After this was complete, I then went in and reapplied some of the dark lining where I had messed it up from this gray. And that concludes Batman. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. If it was and you'd like to see more like it, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where I occasionally post pictures of works in progress. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. But until then, happy painting.